All right, Nikita Khrushchev. Nikita Khrushchev is born April 17th, 1894, into the ideal proletariat family. Now, this is important when you understand part of the reason that he is going to become such a fervent communist has to do with his upbringing. Okay, if you remember back from the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx and Frederick Engels in 1848, they talk about this class struggle between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. Okay, the proletariat are the workers; they're the ones that should be controlling everything in the communist ideology. And Nikita Khrushchev comes from that background. So that is important to understand. Additionally, you need to understand that Khrushchev is a proud Ukrainian. He is officially born within the confines of Russia. However, his family is going to move to Ukraine during his young formative years. He is going to be living in Ukraine for the vast majority of his life before he ended up in Moscow within the high ranks of the Communist Party. However, he identifies as a Ukrainian. Now, this is important. It's going to influence some of the ways he governs, some of the policies he's going to take. It's important to understand that Khrushchev identifies as Ukrainian. Additionally, Khrushchev is short. He's about 5'1". He is fast-tempered. He's known as a short little angry guy, and he likes to drink. So you can understand there could be some problems with the stability of Nikita Khrushchev. This is going to cause some issues when it comes to other countries working with the USSR when Khrushchev is in power. It's also going to cause some issues within the Soviet Union when Khrushchev is in control. Now, we get the February Revolution of 1917. This is in the middle of World War I. Okay, we're going to have the Tsar in Russia, who is leading the fight against the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians, and he is not a very popular man. So the February Revolution, there's going to be a group of individuals who are going to come in. We're going to remove Tsar Nicholas II from power in the Russian Empire. They're going to establish a provisional government, and this is incredibly popular in Ukraine. As I've already stated before, Tsar Nicholas II was not popular at this time, particularly in the Russian Empire, but he particularly was not popular in Ukraine. Now, at this same time, this is when Khrushchev is going to get real fired up. He is an industrial worker. He is going to join with the Bolshevik Party. And this is the beginning of his communist upbringing and really is going to be kind of the beginning of his political life. Then we're going to get October of 1917 with the October Revolution, where Vladimir Lenin storms into the palace in Petrograd, removes the interim government, and he establishes a socialist republic. Okay, this is kind of the foundations of the Soviet Union. This is when they're going to come and they're going to establish their authority. Now, after the Bolshevik Revolution, Khrushchev is a member of the Bolshevik Party, so he is going to be supporting them. This is going to lead to the civil war in Ukraine, which is the communist, the Red Army versus the Tsarist White Army. Khrushchev is going to enlist, and he is going to fight versus the Red Army. The Poles are going to actually invade Ukraine to try to take some land from Ukraine. Khrushchev is going to fight against them. He's going to fight against the Tsarist, and he is ultimately going to be victorious. Okay, so Khrushchev fights in the Red Army. Also around this time, his wife is going to die. His first wife dies, leaving him with 2 children to raise as a single father. Again, this is important to understand when you talk about the background of Khrushchev. He really is coming from that Workers' Party background that you don't necessarily see with some of the other elites who are going to be leading the USSR through this time period. So what he's going to do is he's going to move to a city. He is going to go there to get an education. And his idea behind this is he will get an education. He will better his life for him and his 2 children. This is important because previously this was not possible under the life of the Tsar. Under the way it was with the Tsar, a man from a proletariat family would not have access to go to an education, get an education, to go to a college. He would simply be born a peasant and then die a peasant. So Khrushchev sees this as proof of the communist superiority, the fact that the communists are coming in and allowing something like this to happen that never would have happened before. Education is a positive thing. He is seeing this as a way to better his life, and he sees this as only happening because of the communist rule in Ukraine. Additionally, right around this time is when Khrushchev is going to become the leader of the Yuzovka Student Communist Party. This is a city in Ukraine that he is living in, and he's going to become the leader of the Communist Party, Student Communist Party within that town. Now, this is the beginning of Khrushchev actively getting involved within the Communist Party. This is really the beginning of his political career, and this is a move that's going to change the history for not only him, but the history of the Soviet Union. Now, Khrushchev is going to slowly come to power within the Communist Party. He is not going to go real fast, which is kind of unique at this time period. He's very methodical in what he does, and he's slowly going to work his way up from Yuzovka, student Communist Party leader, to the leader of the Communist Party in Kiev, which is going to be the capital city of Ukraine. Now, Khrushchev is ambitious. He knows that he would like to be in more power, work up his way up in the party, and he knows that's not going to be possible if he is not in Moscow. So he's going to go to Moscow officially to work on his education, is kind of the way he's telling everyone, to get a further degree and advance as an educator, or as an educated individual. However, he's actually doing this to establish his power base. He realizes that Moscow is the capital of the Soviet Union. If he wants to have any real power within the Communist Party, he needs to have a base of power in Moscow. So he moves to Moscow under the guise of bettering himself with his education. In reality, he's trying to establish a power base. Once he gets to Moscow, he is going to be in charge of creating the Moscow subway, which you can see pictured right here. It's an incredibly ambitious project that he is going to lead, and he's going to do such a good job during this leading of the Moscow subway project that he's going to be appointed the first secretary general, or first secretary of the Moscow Communist Party. This is basically the equivalent of being like the mayor of Moscow. So he is going to dramatically move up the ranks right through here. And then we get into Stalin's Great Purge from 1936 until 1938. Now, this is something that's a little bit interesting when you understand with Khrushchev. Khrushchev really should have been killed during the Great Purge, and this is because he was popular and had a lot of power in Moscow, and he also had a lot of power in Ukraine, meaning this was something that Stalin should have been afraid of as someone who could possibly have come to power and taken out Stalin. So Stalin killed the vast majority of people like that, but he kept Khrushchev around for a number of reasons. The primary one is Khrushchev was seen as a joke. Okay, Khrushchev being a short, fiery temper alcoholic made it a lot harder for people to trust him when it came to actually getting any power. So Stalin did not see him as a threat. Additionally, Khrushchev is going to publicly support Stalin, and he's going to kind of be Stalin's court jester in private. Now, he's going to gain power through this Great Purge, as I was just saying, because he publicly supports Stalin, and he does this fervently. He is out in the streets talking about everything Stalin's doing, how good Stalin is, and why Stalin is the true leader, to try to show that he is not a threat to Stalin. In private, as I've already said, he will entertain him. Stalin will have him dance for him. Stalin will have him sing for him, and kind of make a jerk of himself and embarrass himself for the betterment of Stalin. However, this would be humiliating for Khrushchev. It is going to ultimately keep him alive and allow him to really gain favor with Stalin. After the Great Purge, he is going to be appointed the leader of the Communist Party in Ukraine in 1938. Now, in 1939, we're going to have the Soviet invasion of Poland. Okay, when Hitler and Stalin have their mutual non-aggression pact, they're going to split Poland in half. Khrushchev is the one leading that Soviet invasion into Poland. Now, he's going to create his own purge after World War II of German-aligned Soviets. So we know during Operation Barbarossa, the Soviets wiped through, or the Nazis wiped through nearly to Moscow, and they're going to commit a number of horrendous crimes. Khrushchev, after World War II, is going to step up, and he is going to have his own purge of anyone in Ukraine who is aligned with the Germans. He kills them, and he rids them of really any power at all. Additionally, right around this time, there is going to be a massive famine in Ukraine. Now, this was a famine that was made worse by the policies of Stalin. So people just died because of Stalin's inability to lead. Now, this is important for a number of reasons. One, a bunch of people died, but number two is this is happening in Khrushchev's Ukraine. Khrushchev loves Ukraine. He sees this as wrong. He sees this as a reason that's something that Stalin could have fixed. It's the beginning of his turn from Stalin. Now, he's not going to publicly go against Stalin, but internally he's starting to realize that some of the stuff Stalin is doing is wrong. And this is going to lead to his whole process of de-Stalinization once Khrushchev comes to power. Now, Stalin dies in 1953, and Khrushchev is going to slowly take power, as I've already talked about in the previous video. He's going to work to repair relations with Tito in Yugoslavia. He's also going to transfer Crimea back to Ukraine. Now, this is going to be important when it comes to talking about what happened in Ukraine in 2014 when the Russians came in and what's still going on in Crimea up until today. So Khrushchev is going to transfer Ukraine to Crimea. He's going to begin the era of de-Stalinization, which we will talk about in the next video. If you have questions, comments, put them down below. Otherwise, good luck.